Tēnā tātou katoa, good evening. More kids in school, fewer committing crimes and much fewer people on the benefit. The government unveiled its public service targets today. We've already seen the health ones, but it's added targets across the rest of government. The law and order focuses on youth offending and violent crime with targets of 20,000 fewer victims of assault, robbery or sexual assault. Last year, there were 185,000 victims and a 15% reduction in the number of children who are persistent offenders. At school, only 46% of kids are there at least 90% of the time. The government setting a new target of 80% of kids attending. It also wants to see 80% of Year 8 students at or above their curriculum level in reading, writing and maths by December 2030, up from 35 to 56% in those subjects. Its confirmed target remains to hit net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And in the welfare space, the government wants to see 50,000 fewer people on the job seeker benefit from a total of 190,000 and a 75% reduction in households in emergency housing. Political editor Jenna Lynch reports.
School's out, a flood of bouncing backpacks, kids like Toby Fitzjohn bounding to tell mum and dad what they learned today.
Maths, yeah, I like maths.
But the government's concerned children aren't getting enough of the basics. In 2022, only 42% of Year 8 students had reached their curriculum level for maths. The latest data on writing is even worse. Only 35% of Year 8s hit the target in 2019.
How could you not be concerned by those results? I mean, it's not good enough.
One of my children definitely falls into that camp where me and their dad are looking at sort of additional support.
So the government's new target, 80% of Year 8s on track in reading, writing and math by 2030.
And the significant decline in educational achievement is a worry that does frankly keep me up at night.
It's one of the 9 goals National has set for the public service, all to be hit in 6 years.
The big 9 big rocks that we think actually for New Zealanders sitting out there in New Zealand that matters the most to them.
Along with a focus on law and order and education, the government is honing in on welfare. It wants to slash benefit numbers by 50,000.
The goals in themselves are provocations for conversations to take place between the ministers and the agencies and myself actually through the strategy committee to make sure that we're doing everything we can to deal with these numbers.
In December 2023, there were about 190,000 people on the job seeker benefit, but just over 80,000 of those were receiving it because they have a health condition or disability, what used to be known as the sickness benefit, leaving nearly 110,000 who are deemed work-ready. The 50,000 reduction won't just apply to work-ready though, it'll target those on the health or disability job seekers benefit too.
They may want to do part-time work, they may want to get work ready, they might want to do more programs in preparation for work.
I use a personal story. My father had to go on the benefit to look after my mum when she was dying from cancer. What he needed was support from a government, not basically the pressure to go back to work.
At the end of last year, there were 3,100 households living in emergency housing. The government wants that reduced by 75%, meaning more than 2,000 households will need to be moved out of the motels.
I don't think 3,100 households waking up this morning in emergency housing and motels being there often for longer than 12 weeks is actually success.
The target for youth offending is the lowest of all. Meeting that 15% reduction would still see about 900 recidivist youth offenders. Are you comfortable with 900 youth offenders being recidivist offenders?
No, but I want to start somewhere.
A 6-year stretch goal, also a starting point.
Jenna's with us now. Hi, Jenna. So the government's set to announce its school attendance action plan tomorrow. What have you heard about it?
So there's been a lot of noise made about the potential of fining parents. From what I understand, enforcement action will form a part of the announcement tomorrow, but a lot of the nuts and bolts of that part of the policy are still to be worked through by the sounds of it. One of the real frustrations in this space has been the measurement of how big this problem is. Currently, we get attendance data term by term, and there's quite a lag in the turnaround of that data. Now, David Seymour is in charge of this work, and in the campaign, he was pitching the idea of daily attendance data. Now, a loose comparison could be drawn here to the daily COVID case reporting that we saw at the peak of the pandemic. So not individualised to children, but numbers, so that the government could look at trends of particular areas or schools that were problematic. It sounds like that might be where they are heading, but one question to answer tomorrow is how quickly they could get that up and running, because a problem that you cannot measure is a problem that you cannot manage.
Ngā mihi, Jenna, thanks so much.